The bell above the cafe door jingled once, sharp, deliberate, and the entire room seemed to stiffen. Conversations dipped. Forks hovered midair. The barista's hand trembled just slightly as he adjusted the steam wand. At table 7, someone muttered, "He's early today." Grant Sterling stepped in like he owned the oxygen. Tailored navy suit, diamond cufflinks, gold watch peeking from beneath his sleeve. His shoes, polished to a mirror sheen, barely made a sound on the marble floor. But his presence was thunder. He didn't greet anyone. He never did. He simply walked, nose high, jaw sharp, like the universe was on borrowed time just waiting for him. At the far end of the cafe, the new waitress, Imani, tightened her grip on her notepad. Her first week here had been calm. Quiet. Almost too peaceful, considering the whispered warnings from other staff. "If he comes in, just smile," one of the servers had advised. "Don't talk back. Don't breathe wrong. Don't think." He sat at his usual corner table, the best seat in the cafe. Sunlight poured through the tall window, spotlighting him like a stage actor awaiting his cue. Without glancing up, he raised a single finger and flicked it forward. The signal. Imani hesitated for a second. Just long enough for him to notice. His eyes, cold and gray, snapped to her. She approached slowly, steady on her feet. "Good morning, sir. May I take your espresso? Double. Hot. Not warm. Hot. Are we clear?" "Yes, sir." He leaned back in his seat and waved her off like an insect. Imani didn't flinch. She turned and walked toward the counter, each step echoing in the quiet room like a drumbeat. Behind her, she could feel the tension. People watching. Waiting. The machine hissed and puffed as she prepared the espresso, her fingers moving efficiently. She placed the steaming cup onto the tray, approached him again, and gently set it down in front of him. He didn't touch it. He stared at her. Then, slowly, he lifted the cup, brought it to his lips, and stopped. "Lukewarm." Imani blinked. "Sir, I just brewed it." He took a sip, exaggerated a grimace, and then, to the horror of everyone watching, tossed the remaining contents onto the pristine floor beside him. The dark stains spread across the polished tile like spilled ink. "Try again. Unless this is the best incompetence your cafe can offer." Imani crouched down, reached for the cloth from her apron, and began mopping up the mess without a word. "Typical," Grant said loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Hire anyone these days, huh? No standards. No service." She paused. Her eyes lifted to meet his. For a beat, the cafe held its breath. "Sir," she said calmly, evenly, "if the espresso had been any hotter, it would have scalded your tongue." "Excuse me? You asked for hot. It was hot. I made it fresh. You insulted the drink, then insulted me. That's not feedback. That's behavior." The silence was so thick it felt like static in the air. A businessman in the corner lowered his phone. A mother nudged her child to stop staring. Grant's jaw twitched. "You're lecturing me now?" "No, sir. Just speaking. If that's allowed." He stood up abruptly, chair screeching back. He towered over her, though she didn't shrink. Not an inch. "Do you even know who I am?" She stood slowly, claw still in hand, and looked him directly in the eye. Her voice didn't rise. Her posture didn't change. "No. But you seem very determined to make sure I do." He blinked, stunned at the audacity. No one ever spoke back to him, especially not staff. Especially not a young black woman fresh on the job. She wasn't supposed to look him in the eye like that. She wasn't supposed to speak with that tone. That control. From the corner of her vision, Imani saw the cafe manager step halfway out of the back room, eyes wide. Frozen. Not stepping in. Not defending. Just watching. Grant slowly sat back down, tapping a manicured finger on the table. "You just made a mistake. A very, very big one. I'll bring you another cup," she said simply. "And you're welcome to send that one back, too. Just don't spill it this time." He didn't answer. She turned and walked back to the counter. Behind her, whispers began to bubble up. Not in fear, but awe. A server mouthed, "Oh my God!" A man in a gray jacket gave a silent thumbs up. Even the barista, still rattled, gave her a quick nod of respect. But Grant Sterling's eyes never left her. They glinted with something new. Not just disdain. Now it was personal. The second cup of espresso sat untouched. Imani placed it in front of him with the same precision as before, silent and calm. Grant didn't even look at the drink. He looked at her. The smirk on his face was different this time, tighter, sharper, like a predator who'd just spotted a scratch on its prey. She didn't flinch. He hated that. "Tell me," he said as she turned to leave. "Did they train you to be mouthy, or is that just natural talent?" Someone nearby choked on their muffin. A couple at the next table looked away quickly, pretending not to hear. The manager, still hovering by the back, took a cautious step forward, then thought better of it and disappeared into the kitchen. Imani paused, back still turned. Then she slowly looked over her shoulder. "Would you like anything else with your espresso, sir?" His smile widened. "You know what? I think I will." The next 30 minutes were a storm disguised as manners. Grant ordered a toasted sourdough, then sent it back for being too crunchy. He asked for avocado, then sneered that it was mush like baby food. He requested a different cup, one with less fingerprints. Then he wanted lemon slices on the side. Then sugar cubes. Then a different chair because this one was tilted. Imani fulfilled every request. Precisely. Silently. Calmly. But she met his gaze every time. And that, more than anything, made his fury simmer just beneath the surface. Customers began watching openly now. Phones hovered discreetly, recording bits and pieces. Not one person in that cafe could pretend this was normal. They had seen Grant's tantrums before, but no one had ever matched his energy with such poise. Finally, he clapped his hands twice, loudly. Imani arrived at his table like a shadow. "Yes?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his voice a weapon dipped in poison. "Why don't you do something useful for once and smile?" A few heads turned sharply. A woman gasped audibly. Somewhere near the barista station, a mug slipped and shattered. Imani's face remained blank for a long second. Then she gave the faintest smile, small, sharp, and as cold as his tone had been. "Like that?" she asked. He blinked. "That's not a smile. That's a threat." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Funny. That's exactly how I interpreted your tone." The room went utterly still. Grant's chair scraped as he stood once more, towering again. "You don't get to decide what I meant. You serve. That's your role. You are beneath me. Understand?" Imani's breath was steady, but her jaw tightened. "No one is beneath anyone. But maybe that's hard to grasp from up there." Grant looked around, as if expecting the manager, security, someone, anyone, to step in and shut her up. But everyone remained in their places, frozen, watching. "I could shut this place down," he said loudly, addressing the room now. "Do you all know who I am? I own half the block. One call, just one, and this cafe becomes a memory." Imani folded her arms gently, unshaken. "And yet here you are. Week after week. Sitting in the same seat. Ordering the same drink. Needing to be seen." A woman near the window whispered, "Oh my God! You're on a first-name basis with humiliation," Imani added. "You just make sure to dish it out before someone else beats you to it." He stepped closer. "You don't know me. I don't need to. Your actions do the talking." His face flushed, not red, but pale, tight with restraint. The anger didn't explode, it folded in on itself, dangerous and quiet. He pulled out his phone, tapped rapidly, then looked toward the counter. "Get your manager." "Now." Imani didn't move. Grant stared harder. "Now." The manager finally emerged, adjusting his tie, eyes darting from Grant to Imani and back. Yes, sir. I heard there was an issue? Fire her, Grant said simply. Right now. Or you'll be explaining to your investors why their anchor tenant pulled out. The manager looked like a man caught between a gun and a cliff. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Sir, I'll have to write a report. Procedures. She mocked me. She disrespected me in front of customers. That's enough. I'll need a moment, the manager stammered, pulling out his phone. Imani remained still, her expression unreadable. Then, from the back of the room, a soft voice cut through the tension like a knife through silk. I wouldn't make that call just yet. Everyone turned. A woman in her 60s rose from a quiet booth in the corner, her posture graceful, her outfit refined, gray slacks, a pearl blouse, no makeup, but a presence that commanded silence. She had been watching the entire time, unnoticed. Grant squinted. Who? I'm someone who doesn't take kindly to bullies. Imani blinked, recognition flickering in her eyes. The woman walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. She stopped between Grant and Imani, her back straight, her gaze cool. I'm Evelyn Langford, she said, owner of this cafe. And all 5 others across the city. The manager went pale. Grant's lips parted, then closed. Evelyn turned to Imani. You handled yourself with dignity. And I've seen more than enough. She looked at the manager next. We'll be having a longer conversation later. Then, finally, her gaze settled on Grant. And you're not the man you think you are. Grant's voice faltered. This is ridiculous. She was insubordinate. This is a service job. There are standards. There are. Evelyn interrupted. But they apply to customers too. The tension cracked like lightning, then settled into silence. She stepped aside, leaving Grant standing alone. For the first time, his expression showed something new. Uncertainty. Embarrassment. He opened his mouth again, but no words came. Imani tilted her head, the barest trace of amusement in her eyes. And for the first time in the cafe's history, Grant Sterling had nothing left to say. Grant stood stiffly, phone in his hand, his fingers twitching as if still hoping someone, anyone, would swoop in to save his authority. But no one moved. The energy in the cafe had shifted completely. The same staff who once avoided eye contact with him now watched openly, curiosity and quiet satisfaction flickering in their expressions. Imani stepped back slightly as Evelyn Langford gently motioned for space between them. I've been visiting each of my cafes this month, Evelyn said calmly, eyes on Grant. But I chose this one to stay a little longer. I'd heard rumors about the culture here. Staff fearful, morale low, complaints swept under the rug. She folded her hands behind her back. And your name came up more than once. Grant's eyes narrowed. So this is what? Some kind of setup? It didn't need to be. You performed all on your own. He scoffed, shifting his weight. I'm a paying customer. I expect service. Not attitude from the help. Evelyn's gaze hardened. You weren't expecting service. You were expecting submission. He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. This young woman did nothing wrong. She served you, responded with composure, and kept her professionalism when you attempted to humiliate her repeatedly. That's more than I can say for your behavior. Grant turned to the manager again. So you're really going to let her talk to me like that? In public? I spend more in a month here than. Than what? Evelyn asked, stepping forward. Than her salary? Than her rent? Is that your measurement of value, Mr. Sterling? A pause. He blinked, uncertain. Because if so, she continued, then let me make something clear. You might have wealth. You might have influence. But in my establishments, respect isn't optional. It's expected, from both sides of the table. The crowd hadn't moved. Phones were no longer discreet. Several had them aimed openly now, not even pretending to be subtle. Imani stood quietly, her hands now behind her back, watching it all unfold like it wasn't even about her anymore. Evelyn turned slightly to face the room. For those of you who witnessed this interaction, thank you for staying calm. You may not realize it, but your silence spoke volumes. A few customers nodded. One man raised his hand slightly and muttered, "You've got our support." Grant's jaw clenched. "I can ruin you. Do you have any idea who I am?" Evelyn turned back, completely unbothered. "You're Grant Sterling, owner of the Sterling Holdings Group. You've been trying to acquire a portion of my Café properties under your hospitality portfolio." He went still. Her voice lowered. "And I've been watching your bids come through, increasingly aggressive, trying to edge out family-run operations and claim prime real estate." Imani raised an eyebrow, her eyes flicking to Evelyn. This was new. "You assumed I'd sell," Evelyn added. "You assumed, like everyone else, I was aging out. Ready to cash in." Grant's expression shifted from anger to confusion. "But I wasn't stalling. I was watching." She stepped forward, closing the space between them by inches. "And today," she said with finality, "you've made my decision easy. I won't be selling a single square foot to you. In fact, your company will receive a formal blacklisting across all Langford-affiliated businesses within 48 hours. His jaw dropped. "You can't." "I just did." There was no gloating in her tone, no smugness. Just precision. Like a judge delivering a sentence without pleasure but with certainty. Grant's phone buzzed in his hand, but he didn't look at it. "You can leave now," Evelyn said, then turned her back to him. He didn't move. Imani finally stepped forward, voice steady. "Would you like that espresso to go, sir?" For the first time in his life, Grant Sterling looked like he had no answer. He glanced around, saw the faces watching, judging, recording. He turned without a word and walked out. The silence held for a second after the door shut. Then it broke, soft claps at first. A small round of applause, followed by scattered cheers. The cafe didn't erupt, but it vibrated with something electric. Vindication. Justice. Evelyn raised her hand gently, signaling for calm. The noise died down. She turned to Imani. "I wasn't sure about hiring you at first," Evelyn said quietly. "Your resume was strong, but this cafe is one of our toughest locations. The staff have been worn down by people like him for too long." Imani nodded once. "I noticed." Evelyn studied her. "But you didn't just serve coffee. You stood your ground. You didn't get angry. You didn't crumble. I just didn't think silence was the right response." "It wasn't," Evelyn said. Then, smiling slightly, she added, "How do you feel about management?" Imani tilted her head. "I've only been here a week. And you've already taught a masterclass in dignity under pressure." She glanced at the cafe staff, many of whom were smiling now. "I need someone who can lead by example. Someone who doesn't tolerate poison just because it's disguised as money." The room was still again, but this time, the stillness hummed with anticipation. "I'd like to promote you to District Training Supervisor," Evelyn said. "You'll oversee staff across all 6 locations. Help us rebuild from the inside out." Imani blinked. "Are you serious?" "I don't waste words." Imani looked around, saw the disbelief and joy on her coworkers' faces. Then she nodded once, firm. "I'd be honored." Evelyn smiled. "Then go ahead and finish your shift. We'll talk after." As Evelyn walked back toward her quiet booth, the room returned to motion. Conversations resumed. Laughter surfaced. The energy had changed. And at the counter, Imani picked up Grant's untouched espresso, walked it calmly to the trash, and poured it out, still steaming. The morning rush faded into a soft, midday lull. The air in the cafe felt lighter, as if a storm had finally passed and left sunshine behind. Customers lingered a little longer than usual, finishing their coffee slowly, throwing quiet glances toward Imani, who had returned to her duties like nothing monumental had just occurred. But everyone knew something had changed. Not just in the room, but in the way people looked at her now. With respect. With gratitude. With something deeper, hope. Near the barista station, a young server with trembling hands approached Imani hesitantly. Hey, she said, barely above a whisper. I just wanted to say thank you. What you did today, we all wanted to do that. But we couldn't. We were scared. Imani gave her a small, reassuring smile. I know. I was scared too. But you didn't show it. Sometimes you don't have to feel brave. You just have to act like you are until it's over. The girl's eyes watered a little. He's treated me like garbage for months. I thought I had to just take it. Like it came with the job. It doesn't, Imani said gently. No one gets to strip your dignity in exchange for a paycheck. That's not part of any job description. A customer nearby clapped softly. Imani looked over. It was the older man in the gray jacket who had given her a thumbs up earlier. Your coffee's on me, he said with a nod. Actually, your next 5. She chuckled. I'll take one today. Let's see about the rest. From the back, Evelyn returned, coat draped over her arm, sunglasses in hand. Walk with me, she said to Imani, gesturing toward the door. Imani untied her apron, folded it, and tucked it under the counter before stepping outside with her. The afternoon breeze was crisp. Cars moved lazily down the street. A few pedestrians passed without knowing that inside those walls, something extraordinary had just unfolded. Evelyn began walking at a relaxed pace. When I was your age, I worked as a waitress too, she said. Back when being a woman behind the counter meant keeping your head down, smiling through insults, and taking tips like crumbs tossed to a dog. Imani looked over. So what changed for you? One day, Evelyn said, a customer told me I'd never be more than a girl with a tray. He said it with a smirk, like it was prophecy. And I remember thinking, he doesn't know me. But I know me. She glanced sideways. That thought carried me farther than any degree. Imani nodded slowly. I believe that. When I started building my cafe chain, I made a silent vow. No employee would ever be made to feel like they were less than human inside my walls. Evelyn stopped, facing her. But somewhere along the way, I started relying on managers, reports, systems. I stopped looking. You couldn't be everywhere at once. No, Evelyn said. But today reminded me that being seen matters. That truth can't just live in manuals and training videos. It has to walk, talk, stand up, just like you did. Imani was quiet for a moment. I just didn't want to let him win. You didn't, Evelyn said. And now he never will. Not here. They turned around and walked slowly back toward the cafe. The sun had shifted slightly, casting long golden streaks across the pavement. I meant what I said, Evelyn continued. You're being promoted. You'll be in charge of staff development across all 6 locations. Not just policies, but people. Real change. I've never managed anyone before, Imani admitted. You just managed a room full of terrified staff, angry customers, and a billionaire with a god complex. I think you're qualified. Imani laughed softly, then sobered. Thank you. I don't take it lightly. I know you don't. That's why you deserve it. As they neared the entrance, a sleek black car pulled up. The window rolled down. Grant Sterling sat inside, his face flushed but composed. He didn't look at Evelyn. He looked at Imani. She held his gaze. I came back to apologize, he said, voice low. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Publicly or just to her? Grant ignored her. I was out of line. I was angry. That doesn't excuse it, but… Imani interrupted, calm and steady. You're not apologizing because you regret what you did. You're apologizing because of what it cost you. He froze. I don't need your apology, she said. What I need is for you to think twice before you treat the next person like they owe you something just because you walked into the room. He looked down for a moment, then rolled up the window without another word. The car pulled away. Evelyn let out a slow breath. That may be the first time I've seen him speechless twice in one day. Imani smiled. Maybe he'll think about it next time. Inside the cafe, the team had prepared a small celebratory gesture. A cupcake with a single candle. A sticky note with "Boss Lady" written in thick marker. The barista had drawn a tiny gold crown on the cup meant for her shift drink. They clapped when she walked in. No speeches. Just honest joy. She lit the candle, looked at the small flame, then blew it out. Later that evening, long after the last customer left and the cafe lights dimmed, Imani stood at the counter, hands resting on the wood, eyes tracing the outline of the corner table where it all began. She wasn't angry. She wasn't triumphant. She was grounded. She had walked into that cafe as a new hire with borrowed courage. She left as something else entirely. And as she locked up, stepping into the night, the world didn't look any different. But she was. And now, everyone else would have to catch up.